League World Series. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bud Palmer. The expert commentator this afternoon is number 7 for the New York Yankees, Mickey Mantle. And it should be quite a game this afternoon as the defending champions from last year, Taipei of Taiwan, has fought their way through to the finals again this year. And they'll be opposing the challengers from Hammond, Indiana, representing the northern section of the United States. They are the challengers this afternoon. So on ABC this afternoon, it's a lot of baseball, Little League World Series on ABC's Wide World of Sports.
It was a long, long time ago when some things were made easier and others couldn't be refused. There were some good days and some not so much. In the summer of 1972, some boys from Hammond, Indiana, stepped away from their reality and into a new dimension. It was the climax of a 5-year dream that only few were aware of. Lessons were learned, characters were shaped, and some hearts were bruised, but not broken. In one magical summer, dreams met destiny. Edison Little League. Don't play umpire.
That's because my boys, Peter, and you know George Leonakis, don't you? He lived close by, and they would get together, and then you had the Parker brothers. We had an all-star team right in our area. So I says, okay, and we're gonna make a good ball team when you guys get to be 12. I had that planned in my head. I says, and see what we can do with that. And it worked out. We went all the way.
The dream of all the parents and the coaches in Little League is to go all the way. For us, I mean, it was a dream that we actually accomplished. As far as a coach goes, he was the best. And he primed us, like all those years, to get ready for that team of 72.
Mr. Vargalich was a great coach. I'm not sure who ever taught him where he got his fundamentals and his drive for baseball. But he didn't tolerate a lot of crap from us out there. He didn't tolerate any whining or complaining out there on the field from anybody. You know, he expected the best, but he was very encouraging all the time.
Well, Mr. Vargalich was a great coach. I mean, looking back at it, you know, some of the things that he actually taught us, I still remember, and something you won't forget. He might have been maybe the best or most important coach of my life. He truly believed from day one. I remember our very first meeting as an all-star team. He believed that we were going to go to Williamsport. He truly believed that we were going to go to Williamsport and win the Little League World Series.
He was a very much a baseball guy, very much a sport guy. And I recall from him always being a positive, motivating force. Do your best, have fun at what you're doing, and don't forget to hustle.
Practice, more practice. And the one thing I remember most about what he was teaching is when the ball comes to you, know where you're going to throw it before it comes to you. You have to listen because of that deep, loud voice. You can't miss that. Okay, he could be at home plate and I'd be out in center field and you could hear him pretty well. It was all fundamentals and everything came together. Can't believe it's been 50 years.
Mr. Vargalich was sort of the Jedi master of Little League baseball. He knew all of the answers, but he didn't tell you the answers. He helped you to figure it out on your own. What he would do is define your role. You know, for example, I wasn't a marquee player on the team. I was a role player. Matter of fact, in Little League, I was probably an average hitter, even by Little League standards. But what I could do well was I could field my position. I was a first baseman, and I could pretty much catch anything that was hit my way or thrown my way. And I provided speed on the base paths for pinch running purposes. So he recognized that. And then he put me in positions to succeed, which is what great leaders really do.
That's when I learned how to play baseball. You know, we competed every day. He just had a way of getting the best out of us, treating us wonderful, but having a strong hand, you know, hey, this is the way it's got to be done. No think, you know, you don't, when you're playing, you're not thinking about what you're doing because you practiced it enough to where it comes natural. And I think that was a big thing that he installed in us was, and it's carried on into our lives as men too. I mean, you know, you look back at everybody that was on that team, we have a lot of successful men, you know, that he was a huge influence in that.
50 years have passed. It's hard to believe, right? 50 years. When we were 8 and 9, Mr. Vargalich had the vision. He saw this group of kids and he said, you know, one day these kids are going to go to Williamsport. And he was the vision.
Things that I always remember him saying, and he used to say, don't assume nothing, which of course meant don't assume anything, but he would say, don't assume nothing, which is a great lesson in sports. You never want to assume that what your opponent is going to do out there at all, at any time ever. You know, on the baseball field or in business or whatever. You just don't make assumptions about things because that's when it costs you, when you start making assumptions.
Oh, I could still remember some of his sayings. You know, he would actually say, don't assume nothing, which was very important, and always like keep the mind in gear.
That's what he was good at.
If there was ever a play at first base, for example, you thought you were safe and the umpire called you out, if he even got the inkling that you were going to be upset about it or complain or, God forbid, argue with the umpire, he would very quickly catch your attention and say, hey, don't play umpire.
Nobody did a better job than the two coaches that we had.
And the other one was never underestimate your opponent. Those are the two things that I remember him saying.
They didn't baby us. You know, Coach Cornell was the same type of deal, but he didn't baby us. I noticed, you know, I remember a couple times, you know, you gotta, I don't know if it was the right words he used, you know, you gotta suck it up or whatever, but it's over with. Let's go. Let's move on. We got a job to do, you know, because we had a few games that were pretty close. It wasn't life or death. It was baseball. We competed, you know, for that ticket so we could go get a snow cone.
Mr. Cornell was awful good, I think, for keeping us grounded, and I tried to emulate a little bit of both of the coaches as I coached my kids in basketball and baseball.
Coach Cornell was always very supportive. He shared very much the same philosophies as Coach Vargalich. And so both individuals were extremely knowledgeable in the game, and that he was just as much of a motivator.
It could have been very intimidating, but it was instilled by both those coaches that you're good enough to win. You know, just let yourself play and let yourself let it all do your job. You've practiced it. Let's go play. You know, they didn't put any pressure on us. Coach Vargalich, Coach Cornell. It was just, hey, let's go have fun.
If I was a coach today, that I would go back and do the exact same way as they did it because it really prepared you.
Mr. Cornell was our tactical genius, and our practices were very well run. We didn't waste a lot of time. A lot of the drills that Mr. Cornell put together in practice eventually transferred over into our pregame infield drill, which was subsequently named Snap and Pop. That was probably our secret weapon.
You begin to see that there was a lot of real talent throughout the whole league. And if anybody could put all that under one hat, we'd have a pretty good team. And eventually that's what happened when it came around to All-Star time. It became pretty evident that, hey, we were good. We were good. And I hate to say that. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying fact. We were good. But when we got into it, and I began to see some of the talent that we were facing and what we had, I thought, my God, you know, how far can we take this? Of course, we had a few tight spots as we went along, but we pulled through that with dedication and persistence. And all of a sudden, I began to realize that, hey, this can happen. This can happen. And by golly, it did. And it was awesome.
I was very excited when, you know, to be selected in the group of kids that we were with, you know, all of us, you know, it was just one of those experiences that you just can't duplicate ever. playing in the final game, and being able to be fortunate enough to end up with one of the hits during the game, and meeting Mickey Mantle. I mean, there's all these little, snippets or vignettes, that kind of make up the big day and having a great experience.
My brother Tim and I were the players from the Pirates. Neither one of us were what I would consider a premier player. We weren't big, tall pitchers like our team was stacked with, but we were good utility players. We could play any position. We both had good arms. We were good contact hitters, and we didn't make errors.
I wasn't going to play that year. I was 12 years old. I got other things to do besides ride my bike, across the railroad tracks and go practice and play ball. Finally, Mom says, no, you're not going to do that. Last day of sign-up. She drugged me over there, walked me into the school, and it's the last day and I signed up. And that's when everything started.
So, hell, I had the best team, and I knew the best players, and most of the guys were off from my area again, and no trouble getting together to practice and everything. And practice makes perfect, especially if you know what you're doing. And I thought I knew what I was doing, and it turned out pretty good.
We were the best Little League team in the USA, and I believe every minute of that. That was right. We came up with some tough teams, and they all wanted to beat us, but somehow the boys, all of you just came through.
We were a very good baseball team. Everybody talked about our pitching, and I think before we got to a town and we were played, I remember this Indiana State Championship game we won. I think it was 13-0 we won, and all the families that we stayed with there, they knew about us before we got there. We had a great lineup top to bottom. With or without myself and my brother out there. We filled in the gaps that needed to be filled in, and we did have some key moments. My twin brother Tim got to pitch in the San Juan, Puerto Rico game, and he got the save in that game. I scored the winning run in the first game that got us to that game. So we were role players for our team. But unfortunately, I didn't grow very much until I was about 16 years old. So I wasn't one of the bigger, stronger power players on the team. But it was great to be a part of it and to watch the performance of everybody on the field.
We were never supposed to be the winners. I just remember everywhere we went, is, oh, that team from Hammond. Oh, that team from Hammond, and we kept proving everybody wrong. And to me that was kind of gratifying, that we were always going everywhere, being an underdog and overcoming it every time.
I think our confidence started to grow as we started to play, and one of the things I think that helped us out was our infield practice. But we were so big and good in our infield practice that I think that we intimidated a lot of the teams when we took the field. Mr. Cornell would be hitting the ground balls, and we'd just fire it back in, and I think the teams were amazed at how good we were just in infield practice.
Well, we call it the snap, crackle, pop show. Those kind of things that we practiced at. You remember practicing that day after day after day when we had all-star practices after the other games, and got to the point where we were so good at it that it became intimidating to other teams that we played.
Mr. Cornell would come out. He had 2 baseballs that he had painted red, white, and blue, like the American flag. And he'd walk out with the 2 balls, and he had this little bat. It's like a little leaguer's wooden bat. And he would just stand at the plate, and he would look around, and he'd say, okay, all right, snap and pop. And then it would start.
It was impeccable. Everybody had good arms. They were very athletic, and it was almost like watching a major league team have infield practice. And the way that when somebody named it snap and pop or something of that nature, that's exactly what it was. That ball was, that was zipping around the infield. It would zip around from the outfield. There were no mistakes made. And quite frankly, we were told that the opposing teams throughout the tournament would watch us during infield practice and watch, and the parent, the fans from the other team, and they knew they were beat before the game even started because of what they were watching.
The ball came to you, you did not miss the ball at all.
I remember us becoming so skilled at that age that what we did was natural to us, and taking great pride every time we started a game with our infield practice, and actually hearing after the fact that other individuals, other coaches, other teams were somewhat in awe of how we did our infield practice.
Basically, we were just doing what came naturally to us, and that was having fun playing baseball.
But I always thought that the infield practice and outfield practice meant a lot, because it showed the coordination, and the guys knew what was going on, and you just call out a play and bam, it happened. And it was something that it really meant a lot. And I get touched up once in a while thinking about it. We had the snap, pop, and crackle going, and it gave me cold chills because it was beautiful. There wasn't a mistake made with anyone. It was just clap, 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 pop, pop, pop. And the coach told Pete afterwards, and Pete told me that when he saw that infield and outfield warm-up, he says, our guys had never seen anything like that, and you had us beat. And the game hadn't even started. But that was a good time. There was a lot of good times.
And so I says, when you get out on that field, give them hell. And man, we went out there and we just blew them away. And the manager told me after we beat them 12-0, we put everybody in the game on our bench and everything. We didn't want to make it look too bad, but hell, we couldn't stop scoring runs. And after the game, the manager says, boy, he says, where the hell did you get that team? He says, when you guys were taking infield practice, he says, our guys just looked. We were beat right then because, we handled the ball so good and just smooth and what you call like major leaguers.
It was the game against Gary West, not because I hit a home run in that game, which I did, but it was Gary West the year before had gone to Williamsport, and so going into that game, we had to go there. We played at Gary. It was a hostile environment. It was a night game, and there was a lot of noise from the opposing stands. And the thing that stands out in my mind, it was a 1-1 game. I think it was the 5th inning, and I happened to come to bat, and I didn't hear it, but people told me right before I stepped in the box that they were yelling at me, look at this skinny little kid, he can't hit the ball, strike this little kid out. And I was fortunate enough to hit one over the fence, and that sent us to state, right? So that's probably, in my mind, the turning point. When we won that game, I think we were on our way.
It was the state championship. I think it was a state championship game that we won, and it was actually, the game was on the radio. They were doing a radio highlight. Somebody played it back for me once we had gotten home. But I played center field the entire game, and they had some good hitters on their team. But I remember one kid came up. I think he was one of their best base hitters. I played him back because he was a good hitter, and he kind of hit a good shot, and it was a line drive shot, and it went in front of me. And so I fielded on one bounce and threw the ball into second base. Next time up, he did the same thing. So the third time that he got up to the plate, I said, I know what he's going to do for me this time. So I moved up about 20 feet from my normal position. I was not playing deep at all. And he hit the ball over my head. And I ran all the way straight back to the fence. And I actually hit the back of the fence and caught the ball over the fence and crashed down and came crashing down, but I made the catch, and they called it a miracle circus catch, I think, on the radio. The radio announcer did on that. So I would say that was probably my best, my highlight of my career. I'll never forget. I'll never forget that.
The one time I cried, and I don't think too many people realized it, but I did cry, was when we were playing in Michigan, and we were losing the game, and for some ungodly reason, and I don't know why, he pulled his pitcher, the Michigan coach pulled his pitcher, his pitcher was dominant.
We went up to Battle Creek, Michigan to play a team from Detroit, and they were good. They weren't intimidated or impressed by our infield drill, I don't think. They were a very good team, and they had a very dominant pitcher. I wasn't in the lineup that day. I wasn't playing that day, but like any game that I wasn't in the lineup, I really wanted to get in the game. We were down actually 2-1 going into the last inning. We were the visiting team, so going into the top of the 6th inning, we were down to our last 3 outs. And Steve Moore led off the inning, and Steve was an excellent hitter, power to all fields. Not a lot of speed, but a very good hitter. He led off the inning with a single to right field. No sooner did that ball go over the second baseman's head and land in right field, I looked over to Coach Vargalich, and he was already looking right at me. And he just pointed at me, and he pointed to first base, and he just mouthed, "Go." Well, I jumped off the bench and put a helmet on, went out to pinch run for Steve. I advanced to second base on a weak infield ground out. So the next batter was George, and George looped a pop fly to short center field. I had to wait at second base before I could do anything, so just to see if it might be caught. Well, it dropped in, so then I advanced to third base. There was a play at third. I was safe. So now here I am at third base, and there's 1 out, and the only thing between me and a tie game is 60 feet. The first pitch to the next batter is in the dirt, goes past the catcher to the backstop, and my eyes just light up. And without even thinking about it, I just put my head down and ran for home. And I don't think I ever ran faster in my life. So I was safe. So now we have a tie game. Well, our fans went nuts. The guys on the bench went nuts. And now, more importantly, now we've got our mojo back. So we got a tie game. Then the floodgates opened up a little bit. We ended up scoring 2 more runs. And then George was pitching, and he closed out the bottom of the 6th. We won the game 4-2. So that was my moment, I guess.
It chokes me up a little bit even now when I think about it, because I remember I just leaned on the fence and said, thank God we didn't lose it, because if he'd have kept that picture in, I don't know what would have happened. And I still to this date don't understand why he pulled it. But that one was pretty tough.
When there was a guy on third and 1 out, and we had to hold him on third and get the out. And I'll be damned, it hit a ground ball to Rosagani at short, and the guy is trying to score, and Mike throws it in there, near perfect throw, and we nail him at the plate. And we preserve that. The 2-1 score stands, and we are on our way to Williamsport. That was it.
Once we made it to Williamsport, and the first time we come off of the hill and looked down into the ballpark, it just took my breath away. I just thought, my God, we're here, and it was something. It was beautiful.
First time on an airplane for most of us, I think. We're flying out there to Williamsport. We get there, we look at the field. It was just beautiful.
It was a little overwhelming, the crowd, and I never really focused on the TV cameras. I mean, obviously they were there, but it was just seeing this, just humongous amount of people and playing in front of them. I mean, you kind of knew that you were on TV, but it isn't the same thing as standing in front of a big crowd. And
I thought it was just amazing. It was like a fantasy, seeing that field and the way it was set up for us. We had barracks, and then we watched movies at night. We had food like pretty much all day long and stuff like that.
But I remember the flight from Pittsburgh to Williamsport was on a propeller plane. It made a lot of noise flying over the mountains, right? And I remember being picked up at the airport by people from Williamsport, and they actually drove us through the hills, and it's a mountainous area, right? So just the excitement of that, and then stepping onto that campus with the barracks. You know, all the teams stayed. It looked like military barracks, and then seeing the field was kind of set down a little bit with the big hills all around. It was pretty exciting. You know, it was at the same time intimidating.
I really didn't know who Mickey Mantle was at the time, you know. But I guess he's a big baseball star, and I kind of knew it. But you get out there on a mound with him, and you really don't know what to say. You know, you're kind of thinking.
The camaraderie with a lot of other players from different places. You know, it didn't really until the game started. After a few days in there, it didn't really seem like it was. We were there for a competition. It did seem more of a really fun kids type atmosphere because we would. You know, some of them didn't speak English. The Chinese, the Taiwan kids didn't speak English. The Latin American kids, I don't think most of them spoke English. And so you would try to interact with the kids like you would at a summer camp, and we found ways to communicate. And so seeing other kids from other places around the world was really exciting, especially the kids from Taiwan, because I think they wanted to interact. I remember them doing they were doing like military exercises out in front of their barracks, in front of their hut, the entire time. You know, at night, all the other kids would be playing games or playing ping pong or whatever, and they would be out there doing their drills. They were very, very disciplined about their work ethic, you know, at a very early age.
He's been superb. He's had 11 strikeouts. And will he make it 12? He does! 12 strikeouts for Ji-Shun Chen. And Taiwan wins it by a score of 6-0 over Hammond. They scored 6 runs on 10 hits and no errors. Hammond had no runs on 3 hits and 5 errors. 4 of those errors coming in the disastrous 3rd inning. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Minutes of fame. Well, that was great. And everybody still remembers our team. And it's kind of nice to run into people at the store or something, and they'll still talk about us once in a while. Makes you feel pretty good and proud of the accomplishment that we did.
It certainly was, you know, great for, you know, recognition and people remembering you and, you know, all that kind of thing. And now, you know, and what 12-year-old kid doesn't love that? You know, even if you're not going to do anything else, you got to take your 15 minutes. You know.
So there was a lot of recognition from the local areas when we got back, and we were kind of like celebrities for a short while.
It was, you know, it was really a great experience. So we had a parade, which was very exciting as a kid, you know, be a part of a parade and treat it like a celebrity.
So at that point, I think locally, you know, we put Hammond on the map. A lot of people said, yeah, nobody knew where Hammond was until you guys played Little League baseball. So that was probably a really big impact that we had on the community. For a 12-year-old to have that kind of community felt pretty good.
It made you feel proud, you know, it made you feel special.
It was a dream come true when you realize how many kids and how many teams entered that, and to end up being the number 2 team in the world. That's something right there.
Something like this, you know, it bonds people together, and here we are 50 years later, and we just stuck together and we fought. It was that will not to lose.
We were good in our own way, almost naturals.
You hustle all the time. You run out into the field, you run off the field. Sportsmanship, where if things aren't going your way, you still are positive. You don't gloat. You don't cry. You are always at the top level of your demeanor, and you treat everyone with respect and with dignity. And ultimately, you do your best, but you have fun.
And it just didn't seem like we were ever going to have an off day, So it was very positive and very encouraging.
It wasn't easy, but by golly, we did it.
And so that was a pretty good day.
We had good kids that would do anything for you, and they did it, and they did it for each other too, and that was what was important.
A lot of our parents are no longer with us, but something that they said along the way over the years we had reunions, they would always say, "You don't realize, you guys had fun, but we had the time of our lives."
Don't play umpire. Keep your mind in gear. And I can still hear that voice 50 years later, and the influence was, you can't even explain it. I was very fortunate to have that experience as a kid. I learned a lot.
After this, it'd be nice to get together every year because we're not getting any younger.
My goodness. Memories, everlasting. Anybody that wants to ask me some questions, it's always talking about you guys. And there's a story I could say about every guy here. Everybody was part of this in one way, shape, or form throughout the whole thing. We all had different roles, but we all were a huge part. None of this could have been done without anybody on this team, and it was a memory, maybe the best memory of my life. That in baseball for sure. I don't know. There's really no special words for it other than, I love you guys. You guys are a memory in my my past that is thought about and brought up year after year after year, especially come August.
You don't realize how wonderful it was until you look back and you compare what you see today with what you saw then. It was great. When we went after the game at Williamsport, we went to Washington. We were supposed to tour the White House and see Nixon, and we didn't get to see him. And everybody wondered, what the heck is wrong with the president? Well, he was involved in Watergate. So that was something else, that part of history.
I have a son, Tommy, with special needs. He has Down syndrome. And he's a great kid. Well, District 13 here in Illinois includes Bartlett Little League, of which Tommy plays in. And the Challenger Division is by the games that are played there are by invitation. And so they invited our league to create an all-star team and then play another team that they had invited. And this year, for that year, it happened to be from California. So I signed Tommy up to be involved. It is the kind of thing that I was hoping he would enjoy and would be helpful. And interestingly enough, because I was just concerned about how people would perceive why I wanted him to do it because of my history. So I actually have never, until we were like a month from going to the game, no one actually knew that I played in '72. And that was a personal choice because I wanted it to be about Tommy and his team and them playing, and I didn't want to turn, my experience and as some sort of focus away from them. And so it was really exciting to go. We were able to take my dad, who was living in Ohio at the time, and he had just an outstanding time. My sister was there, my wife, a bunch of family members were there. My dad had just a fabulous time here, and it was just a great moment. And there was a couple of newspaper articles about the three generations of Varguliches who played at Williamsport, and it was just fun stuff. Wanting Tommy to have lots of different experiences in life, and so when we had the game and did all that, and you hope that one of the things I've always done with Tommy and having him do things was you have to try. You have to try something. Even if you don't think you're going to like it, I want you to try it. And if you don't, then we'll leave or we'll stop or, whatever. So when he started in the Challenger Division, when he was like 7, he wouldn't even hardly go out on the field unless I went with him. Now, within like 3 or 4 years, I could just show up at the games with him, put him out there, and he was going, and it was, it's a slower learning process. I get all that, but it's just a great. Well, he was a celebrity at school because he missed the first couple days because the weekend of the game was when actually school had started. So I had to email all of his teachers and tell them he wasn't going to be there. And so then they had the newspaper clippings up in school, up in the classroom. And so all of his friends and all their teachers and other just regular kids at East High School, which is a big high school in St. Charles, they all know who Tommy is. So it just made him feel like a celebrity, I guess more like I felt too when I was 12, which was an awesome experience. And I think it helped him, in ways of, growth and understanding that he can face challenges just like anybody else, and able to overcome them and learn from them and just have a great experience, which he did. He and all the players, not just Tommy, all the players just had fabulous experiences, and it was just wonderful to see all that.
There you go. Thank you. This is my assistant. He's bossing me around all day. We argue a lot, but we love each other.